You know when you get one of those annoying questions that you just can't answer properly because you'd have to summarize too much? Like if someone asked you who you are and what you're all about, or why your favorite movie is what it is, you wouldn't be able to answer that because you can't sum up your life story in a phrase, or condense what would be a full-form film essay in a few words. That's the position I find myself in when people ask me, what is Mass Effect? Yes, it's a game, obviously, but that's not what they're asking, is it? What they're asking is, what makes this game special, if anything? Why is this game noteworthy? Why have I heard the name before? Why did your otherwise jaded and lifeless eyes light up when I mentioned it? I probably can't give a short answer, but I'll try anyway. In fact, I'll do you one better. I'll answer the question of why is Mass Effect noteworthy with one word: character. For those of you who are acquainted with the series, this is terribly reductive, I know. There's the story, the setting, the lore, the reveals, the science, the combat, the various worlds, and the myriad races that populate them. But all of those have a distinct character about them. When I say character, I don't just mean the characters, although that is the centerpiece of not just Mass Effect, but of old BioWare's storytelling philosophy. No, what I mean is that there is a unique character to every component part of this franchise. Yes, it has a Star Trek sensibility with a few trickles of Star Wars on top, but plenty of other sci-fis and space operas have that. It has a great story, sure, but it's not that dissimilar to past BioWare games. It has great characters, but many other games do. It has enjoyable combat, but it's far from ideal. Even something as gorgeous as the score isn't technically something you've never heard before, with its classic analog synths, with basic square and saw waveforms that evoke an overall retro sci-fi film vibe. Yet when you hear it, you immediately know that it's Mass Effect, and that's due to its unique character. All of this is why, on paper, this sounds like a good game, sure, but not one that would elicit such a strong emotional reaction from its fans. Even today, the Mass Effect trilogy is, dare I say, one of the most ambitious, most profound journeys you can go through in a video game, or movie for that matter. That's quite noteworthy. How many others like this are there? Now, there are a lot of jokes you could make at these games' expense. I've poked fun at them myself, but at the end of the day, it just resonates. You can make fun of it, point out all the flaws, and still enjoy and remember it years later because it resonated with you. Resonance. Maybe that's a better word than character. Damn it! Whatever, it doesn't matter what you call it. If you've made it this far, it means you're curious, regardless of semantics. Anyway, I will now give you 4 reasons why you should consider playing this game, keeping in mind that this is obviously geared towards newcomers, so I'll avoid spoiling anything, and those of you who've played the game should avoid the same thing in the comments. Play nice, okay? I'm watching you. Damn, that was a long intro from a guy who hates intros. You can tell I'm really into this game. Number 1, I pretty much gave away. It's the characters. The mark of good fiction, of any good fiction, that makes it stand the test of time, is its characters. Characters, when done right, are relatable, charming, funny, heartwarming, shocking, or exceptional in some way. And Mass Effect checks all of these boxes. There's an expansive community that uploads fan art, cosplay, silly gifs, fanfiction, pretty much daily. And you remember how everyone was doing the same thing with Game of Thrones characters, but suddenly stopped and forgot the show ever existed after the horrible finale? Well, Mass Effect had a similarly controversial finale, yet people are still talking about it today with love and endearment. Why? Because of its characters. Because whereas Game of Thrones got by on shock value first and foremost, Mass Effect got by on heart and on writing characters that have heart. You can have the shittiest finale in the world if your characters are solid. People will still love the thing overall. But if most of your characters turn out to be vain, inconsistent, dull, or suddenly inexplicably stupid, people stop caring. Mass Effect 1 sets the stage pretty well in the character department. You meet some solid, interesting folk right off the bat. But where the series really takes off is 2. Mass 2 has a cornucopia of good characters. Some of the best BioWare have ever written, in my opinion. This is where the game makes you care more so than the other 2. You care about each of these people, their motivations, their fears, their futures, their past. And it's all worked wonderfully into the plot by way of you having to go out and try to recruit most of these people and have them potentially give their lives for some abstract, larger-than-life cause, which in turn requires them to have a solid backstory, motivation, and creed to determine them to even consider joining, and also requires you to get to know them and make sure that everyone's in peak condition, lest the whole thing go to shit. It's very much a soldier bonding type of story. Unlikely allies that become brothers in arms and come to understand one another through the fires of war. And characters really are everything in Mass Effect 2, because the plot isn't that elaborate or ambitious or consequential. The characters are. Or, a better way to say it is the plot is the characters. And then 3 takes them all and just has a blast with them. They're already established, so it's free to just meme around with them. Number 2 is the lore. Now, a lot of stories are encased in a thick layer of interesting lore and rich world building, but to me, nothing even comes close to the setting and the lore of these games. Once you know everything and how they set up this universe and how everything in the lore ties into the story, you will be blown away. You'll have that aha moment. They could flesh out a dozen games, books, and Netflix shows on the lore alone. But quantity isn't everything, and it's not the main thing I'm praising here. You see, so many writers make the mistake of writing a lot of cool world building but don't connect it to the story being told in a meaningful way. There's no overarching theme that's being communicated, no clever commentary on the world, no 5th century conflict that's set up in the lore and finally resolved in a big way in the main story. It's just fluff. It's like the warriors of Vanathor held their ground against the infinite scourge of the Zubzar 500 years ago. Legend has it they're still fighting today. Okay, do we get to see that? No. Is it a metaphor for something in the story? Not really. Do the characters in the story at least reference or are affected by it? Well, the narrator mentions it this one time, but on the whole, no. Then why'd you bother writing it in the first place? Number 3, the races. Most sci-fi has some form of human, some form of alien that looks like a human, and some form of AI, while most fantasy has humans, elves, and dwarves. Mass Effect has human, Krogan, Turian, Asari, Solarian, Batarian, Vorchak, Hanar, Drell, Elcor, Volus, Keeper, Collector, Geth, Quarian, Yogg, Rachni, Prothean, Varen, Thorian, Thresher Maws, and the motherfucking and I'm pretty sure I missed a few. These aren't just throwaway peeps to populate the game world, or galaxy rather. They're fully fleshed peoples with rich histories and interesting cultures. And even the lesser races that don't get much screen time have interesting backstories. And it's so well set up too, because you start off by meeting members of the various species, talking to them, hearing them reference some event from their history, which makes you curious enough to dig a little deeper and read up on it, and then go, oh, okay, that totally explains that Krogan's behavior, or why the other races are awkward around them, or why Quarians are awkward around Geth, or why Liara's awkward around you. Because she wants the dick. Speaking of, the 4th reason why you should consider playing Mass Effect is
sex.
Just kidding. Obviously, there's sex in the game, and I use the term loosely, so if you didn't know, well, now you know. No, the 4th and final reason I will mention, even though I could go on, is choice. Mass Effect is all about choice and consequence, and some will argue that some of the choices don't matter in the long run, which, debatable. There are definitely choices that don't matter much, or whose consequences were dumbed down out of time constraints. Be that as it may, there's still a plethora of meaningful choices to make, and I'd argue it's more about the mental stress it puts you through each time you need to make a decision without the luxury of knowing what happens in either scenario in the end. It's both a judge of your character and personality, or your willingness to play a character, i.e. to roleplay. And even with all the inconsequential choices, it still beats most contenders out there, and it offers you the kind of experience you probably expected to have when you first learned the concept of a video game. You imagine you'd be immersing yourself into a dense world populated with interesting fauna and secrets and affecting the game world seamlessly, much like you would in real life. And realistically, only a few games offer that sort of thing, Mass Effect being one of them. Perhaps even the one in the eyes of many of us. Now, the obvious caveat in the room is, if you don't like RPGs, don't like games that are too talky, and think decision-making is gay, then excuse me for interrupting you from your 27th Valorant run, and go ahead and see yourself the fuck out. The rest of you I warmly encourage to give this game a shot, and what better time to do so than when a comprehensive remaster has just been released. I haven't acquired it as of this video, but I've heard good things. Mostly. Please let me know in the comments if you've played this game, if you haven't, if you're considering trying it, if you're a Valorant fan, and so on. And don't forget to subscribe, so we can do this again sometime. Until then, I should go.